This week's fixtures in the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup are absolutely massive games. So in this video, I'm going to be going through the South African team's games: Sharks versus Zebra, Bulls versus Leon, and Stormers taking on Rochelle. Give you a little bit of a preview of each game and then what my prediction is for each game. If you haven't, please make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are on our way to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And obviously, leave your predictions down in the comments. Let's have a bit of a conversation down there. Without further ado, let's get into the Sharks versus Zebra game. Now, the Sharks haven't been having a great season the entire season, but over the last 2 game weeks, they've started to really turn it around. Maybe that's because we have the South African Island test series coming up and guys are starting to try and put their hands up for a spot in that Springbok team. But something tells me that the Sharks are really turning hot now. They're coming off 2 very good wins: a 22-12 win over Ulster and a 23-13 win over Edinburgh. In that Edinburgh game, Apelele Fassi had an absolute blinder, really putting his hand up to be selected in that Springbok squad. Buthelezi also scored an absolutely phenomenal try in that game. So the Sharks have all the names in that team. John Smith has described the Sharks as a Ferrari without an engine, but I do think they're starting to get that engine purring. They're coming into this game in some very good form. They'll take massive confidence off of that game against Ulster and especially that one against Edinburgh. And it just feels like the Sharks are starting to find some form. Now, Zebra have lost their last 5 games in a row and they don't typically travel well. Yes, they beat the Sharks last time out, but that was an away game for the Sharks out in Italy. The last time the Sharks played Zebra at home, they ended up beating them 38-6. So Zebra aren't in great form. Sharks really seem to be finding their footing, their flow, their form. So for me, I'm going to go Sharks by 17 points here. Then we move over into the Champions Cup. The first game, it's an early kickoff about 1:30, I think. Bulls taking on Leon. Now, Bulls faced Leinster last week. They traveled all the way to Dublin and they really put up a fight in that first half. They led after the first half 14-12, but then Leinster made a lot of changes at halftime, brought on some very good Irish players, and Leinster ended up pumping the Bulls 47-14. Now they have to travel back to Pretoria and host Leon. So I'm just wondering how that travel is going to affect the Bulls. Are they going to be a little bit more tired, a bit more fatigued? What does play in their corner is that Leon also had to travel all the way from France. So the traveling shouldn't be a problem. I think the Bulls will be very disappointed with their second half performance against Leinster last week, but the Bulls have been in good form. They've won their last 4 out of 5 games, and they really seem to be one of those South African teams that are at the top of their game. I think the Stormers, their form is just starting to approach where the Bulls are at. Obviously, the Bulls beat the Stormers a couple of weeks ago quite convincingly, but this is going to be another difficult task because Leon, yes, they've only won 3 out of their last 5 games, and French teams don't typically travel well. But the last time they played, Leon beat them 29-28. Yes, it was in France. It was away from home for the Bulls. But the Bulls led that game 23-12 just after halftime. And then they let Leon back into the game. Leon, I think, scored the winning try in the 72nd or 73rd minute there. So a very disappointing second half for the Bulls again, away from home against Leon the last time they played them. But the last time these teams met at Loftus, the Bulls beat them 42-36. The Bulls are massive favorites going into this one, according to the bookies, but I don't think it's going to be that easy. They're also going to be without Marco van Staden for this game against Leon, so how that's going to affect them, I think it's not going to affect them too much. Obviously, Marco van Staden is a phenomenal player, but the Bulls do have a lot of depth in those forward positions. I just think at Loftus, it's very difficult to travel there, especially the overseas teams, and especially the teams from France don't seem to fare well when they travel to South Africa. So although Marco van Staden's injured, although the Bulls got absolutely trounced by Leinster last week, I do think the Bulls will get this done at home. So for me, I'm going to go the Bulls by 9 points. Then the final South African team playing this weekend is Stormers, and they are hosting La Rochelle. Now, this doesn't feel like a domestic game. This feels like a test match. This is the upper echelons of domestic rugby. It doesn't get much bigger than this unless it is an international match between South Africa or Ireland or South Africa, France. This is a massive game. La Rochelle have also won back-to-back Champions Cups, and they're looking to make it 3 in a row, something that's never ever been done before. Yes, they haven't been in great form lately. They've only won 3 out of their last 5 games, but they do seem to be finding their old form slowly but surely, and we know that they are going to come to the DHL Stadium looking for revenge, because when they played about 3 months ago in round 2, the Stormers snatched that game 21-20 from absolutely nowhere. La Rochelle was so dominant in that game and led 29 at a point. And then Willemse with that cross kick, they mauled it over. La Rochelle getting a disallowed try in the 75th minute because of a yellow card. Then the Stormers score in the corner and Manie Leboeck has to convert from the touchline for the Stormers to win, and he ends up doing it. Now, there has been a lot of speculation and chatter about Manie Leboeck's kicking from the World Cup. We saw last week again that he wasn't great off the tee. He is going to have to be almost perfect off of the kicking tee this week if the Stormers are to edge this one. Now, good thing for the Stormers is that they are in good form. They've won their last 4 out of 5 games. They really seem to be operating. Yes, it was a little bit close against Ulster this last weekend, but the good sides take teams deep and beat them deep. They won it in the 75th minute against Ulster last week. The last time they played against La Rochelle, they won it in the 82nd minute. That is a sign of a good side. They stay in the game, even when they're not having a great day, and they try and pull it off at the end. Now, a couple of interesting battles. I do think Damian Willemse is going to play 12 for this game. Yes, I think I prefer him at 15, but just because La Rochelle have Jonathan Dianti, who is an absolute animal on the pitch. He gets him that forward ball. If he has a good game, the Stormers are going to be in a lot of trouble. So I do think John Dobson is going to play Damian Willemse at 12 to try and neutralize the threat of Jonathan Dianti. Damian Willemse is probably the best player in the Stormers side. He probably is one of the best players in the world at the moment. So you're putting up a world-class player against another world-class player, and Damian Willemse has to have a massive game if he is playing at 12. La Rochelle are an extremely physical side. Stormers, not as physical, but they are lethal out wide. So if the Stormers can diffuse La Rochelle's physicality, I do think the Stormers will be able to win this one. Yes, they didn't put in a good performance against Ulster last week. 2 weeks ago against Edinburgh, they were absolutely killing Edinburgh, but their finishing, their handling, their silly mistakes kind of got the better of them, and that's why that game ended up being a little bit closer than it was meant to be. This is going to be an absolute heater, and if you're in Cape Town, I would definitely recommend going to this game. It's the closest thing you're going to get to Test match rugby before the international break. For me, it's going to be very, very tight. It's going to come down to margins and inches, and if Manie Leboeck's kicking well off the tee, and if Damian Willemse can neutralize Jonathan Dianti, and if the Stormers pack can hold up that La Rochelle pack. For me, I think the Stormers are just going to get it done. I'm going to go Stormers by 3 points. So that's it. A massive weekend for the South African teams. Let me know in the comments what your predictions are, what your thoughts are on these games. If you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Peace.